Hi, I'm Chris from homeCode, and this week I learned that you don't call this a bunch of bananas. It's called a hand. And that's kind of creepy. I did higher grade maths. I didn't do a lot of homework or caring about it, but I still did it. It was super challenging, but was ultimately in my mind just a bunch of numbers, lines, and symbols that belonged in a textbook or exam paper until I was done with them, and then I'd never see them again. It may have been because no one told me or because I wasn't listening in class, but I had no idea what the point of it all was. Why did I need to know the quadratic equation or even multiplication at all? Then, many years after school, I began my coding journey, and I quickly became furious that I couldn't remember all the math that I had learned. Who knew that there was an actual use for it in game design? I needed to know how to use algebra, trigonometry, geometry, or that just for something as simple as having a character jump. Even in my honors study in anthropology, I had a classmate who needed to run these calculations for mapping out an archaeological dig site. In my years teaching grade 0s to 7s, I needed a quicker way to calculate marks, and so I had to create algorithms in Excel. Math is everywhere, and it isn't fun in and of itself always. This lesson focuses on helping our children to see that mathematical concepts apply to real-life situations. Specifically in this one, how a farmer could more quickly use math to count bananas. Remember, you can buy the full lesson plan from my Teacher Marketplace page, and it includes a thinking routine to introduce the topic, a teacher sheet, as well as printouts that show this process step by step. Recently, I had a homeschool mom who tried out the notes on teaching emotions to preschoolers, and she said that she loved how easy they were to follow and how you could pick them up without any preparation and run the lesson. Thanks, Andrea. If you'd like to support me in other ways, you can click the subscribe button and the notification bell, or become a patron of mine through the link in the description. You'll be able to get all the lesson plans, choose upcoming ones, or even have one-on-one meetings with me. Last bit of punting the business stuff. The homeCode online school is launching in June 2020 and will feature small classes, thinking skills-based activities, and your children's passion-focused interactions that enhance your child's learning experience. Again, link in the description below. On to the bananas lesson. The inquiry question that we'll kick the lesson off with is, where can you use multiplication in the world outside school? The outcomes we look at for always fall into the categories of knowledge, skills, and values we want our children to have. For this lesson, here's what they are. Knowledge, the 3 times table. Skills, coding with mathematics, understanding variables, and applying prior experience to new situations. The values that we want them to have are using and seeing mathematics in everyday life, challenging yourself to apply new concepts. Coding time! We'll be using Scratch. Now, Scratch is a free MIT-developed coding tool that not only introduces coding, but has become a coding language in itself, really. So depending on where you and your children are at in their coding journey, you'll have different levels of challenges in this, but here's the main idea. To make an animation that allows you to input any number, multiply it by 3, and have that depicted in an actual banana hand multiplication. So we want to see the total in the end as well. Here's how my end product look. I've got some of the instructions here, but ultimately we have a bear who asks you how many banana hands do you want, and I can put in any number. I'm going to put in 22 and click there, and then we have all the bananas multiplying, and our bear stands up and says the answer. Now, this is a little bit more advanced than as far as I'm going to take you. I do take you even a few more steps in the lesson plan, which you can get on the teacher page. All right, onto your project. So if you are or aren't signed in, whatever, you can click on create to get started. Scratch always starts us off with Scratch the cat, the sprite over here. To delete that, go over to the little rubbish bin with the X, click on that. Let's start with a blank slate. So very first thing that we will do is choose a backdrop. You can either click directly on here, or you can go to the magnifying glass and look and think, where do you think you would want a bunch of bananas that are getting counted? Up till here, I've been using a desert, and I'm going to stick with that. Otherwise, a farm would probably make sense as well. There we have the backdrop over there. And now to add in our sprite, which is our character or our object, if we're speaking in coding terms, we go down to the sprite button over here. In the same way, you can click the magnifying glass or click that little face over there. And there are the bananas. Now I've chosen bananas over here because there are 1, 2, 3. But as you get more advanced in this, you can have a look for different things that you would want to multiply. Maybe like this donut, if you counted exactly how many sprinkles there are and you wanted to multiply that and find an easy way to do that. There are some glasses as well where you can have multiples of 2, so your 2 times table. But for today, I'm going to show you how we do it with bananas, with 3. Okay, so now we've got that in, and we are going to use first an event. Now, an event tells us when something should happen. We attach code to this to say when we click the green flag, then whatever is attached to here is what should happen. And what we want to do right at the start is have some variables. This is what a variable is. A variable is something that we keep information in, that we can use later. It's like a treasure chest. You put treasure in, and whenever you want to use it, you open it, take it out, or add more, or just count it. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If not, don't worry too much. You're going to see how it plays out in just a moment. So we've got a whole variable section over here. We've already got a variable that exists and storing no information at the moment other than the number 0, which is by default what Scratch or what most programs do. To get rid of this, we're going to right click and go delete my variable. We're going to make 3 variables for this. One to store how many bananas we actually have in one hand. So I'm going to call that one hand. Another one that is where we store the information of how many times we want to multiply that hand. So how many hands do we have? And then a last one that stores our total amount of bananas. So if we have one hand of 3 bananas, then our total would obviously be 3. We need to give a value or set a value for each of these. So we're going to drag in 3 of these set blocks. And for each of them, we're able to change them. The first one I'm going to leave as hand. The second one I'm going to change to multiply. And the third one I'm going to change to total. For hand, we know that there are 3 bananas in this one, so I can already set that to 3. For multiply, I'm just going to leave it as 0 at the moment. And for total, it's going to get a little bit more complicated, but follow along carefully, and this will be a lot easier with the lesson plan because you've got the pictures and exactly where this is. Otherwise, you can pause and all that sort of stuff. We're going to go to operators. Under operators, we've got a bunch of different values. We've got ones where we can add or minus, or take away, divide, or times. So we're going to be using the times one. For the times one, you're going to drag it across and drop it into total. Notice how it highlights as soon as I'm able to actually drop it into total. So we'll put it in there. We want our total to be the hand multiplied by how many sets, or how many hands rather, of bananas we actually have. To do that, I can go to my variables section over here, and I can drag these variables in. So I'm going to drop that one in the first one there, hand in there, and multiply. So total is going to have the value of hand times multiply, and that will give us our total. Now we can actually test this out immediately. So over here we see that hand is set to 3, multiplies to 0, and the total is 0. So 3 times 0 is 0. If I over here change that amount, 3 times 20, for example, and I click the green flag, there we go. It's working right away. Now, if you are at kind of an introductory level and you don't want to go further than this, that is totally all right. But I'm going to be going on making it just a little bit more advanced, a little bit more exciting. So I want my bananas to actually ask how many times we want to multiply. A little bit of interactivity is always a good idea. So in order to do that, we go to sensing. And in sensing, we've got a block that says ask, what's your name, and wait. I'm going to drag that in here, and I'm going to change what's your name to how many hands do you want? Spell that all right? Good. How many hands do you want, and wait. Just below this block, we've got the answer over here, which is also another variable that we didn't need to create. It's made automatically. Now our code says when we click the green flag, set hand to 3, how many bananas we have, ask how many hands do we want, set the multiply variable to the answer that we get from there, and then the total is hand times multiply. Let's see if that works so far. How many hands do you want? I want 15 hands. And there we go. Our total is 45 so far. It is working really quite nicely. Let's take it a step further and actually have our banana duplicate, clone itself that many times. To do that, we're going to go over to control over here, and we've got a repeat block. Now, a repeat block is, just as you would expect, something that repeats. So whatever code we put inside here will repeat as many times as we put the number inside here. Here's a little trick that I worked out. We want this to run as many times, to clone our bananas as many times as we've set the multiply. Now we start off with one hand of bananas, which means that we are going to want it to clone one time less than we've put in. I know it sounds complicated and weird. If it doesn't make complete sense, don't worry. Just put the code in and you'll see that it actually does make sense as you go. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to operators. I'm going to drag in a minus operator over here and drop it in there. And then go over to variables and drop multiply that value minus 1. So whatever code is going to run in here will run as many times as the value that is stored in multiply minus 1. Because we want it to clone. To clone our bananas, go to control, look for right at the bottom here, create clone of myself. Now technically this is actually working. I can put that in 5 and you'll see it gets a little bit thicker, but we don't actually see those clones because they're being created on top of themselves. So let's have our bananas move over just a little bit. I'm going to go to motion and say move a bunch of steps. I'm actually going to change that to 20 steps and let's see what that looks like. Let's say 5 clones. There we go. It's going out nicely. These are still a little bit big, so I'm going to go to size over here and I'm going to change the size from 100 down to 40. And let's see what that looks like. How many hands do you want? I want 5. And that gives us, there we go. It shows up nicely and we get the total there of 15. There are a lot of other things that you can do with this. You're welcome to go look at the code that I have. Otherwise, a nice thing to do is to have it start at the same place. So here in motion, you can go to this one, go to X, blah, 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 minus 142 and Y minus 148, which means that my bananas will start at the same place each and every time. Now you see there is an issue that if we have a really high number, then it goes all the way to the edge there. If you want to see how I solved that, then please do go have a look at my project where I've actually got it to run along, bounce off the edge and come all the way back as well. I've also got my banana saying the answer rather than it just showing up over there. There you have it. If you'd like a few extra steps, then feel free to head on over to my Teacher Marketplace page where you'll also have access to a reflection routine and of course all the steps to this. If this was helpful, then please share it with others in your homeschool community. Like and subscribe. If you've got any questions or topics you want covered, then please let me know in the comments. Until next time, keep exploring.